Benchwarmers Podcast. I am Casey Coggins here with Alvin Hebert.
What a good Pilsner.
And Andrew Lira. Drinking our baseball beers to toast the Yankees losing and getting knocked out of the playoffs.
You like Pilsners? You're into Pilsners?
They're pretty good.
You watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Yes.
You like Pilsners? You need to get on the show, Casey. Come on, Casey. Such a good show.
So good. I have so many other things that I have going on right now that getting a new show is not on the top of the list.
You're right. It would. You'll be hooked.
Yeah, it'll take up a lot of time.
I already have enough shows, and I have like 4. Getting on to Brooklyn Nine-Nine is I've seen a few episodes, and it's all right.
What?
All right.
It's all right. It's like most comedies. Like I laugh at it and then I move on with my day. Like I'm not gonna sit there and like preach gospel about Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
That's not nice.
Or
noise.
I to be fair, I'm also the same way about another like classic sitcom of It's Always Sunny. I'm like, yeah, some episodes are really good, and some episodes they tried too hard, and it's not as funny as it's like hit or miss with me. I don't think every episode is like an instant classic.
And what's odd about that, about you and It's Always Sunny, is that that's a straight white show.
Yeah.
That's what's odd.
Well, I mean, it's like
it's Philly.
It's like a live action Family Guy kind of thing, where it's like Family Guy
without the cutscenes
has some like really good episodes and like moments of just hilarity for 30 minutes. And
where's my money? Did you get my money?
But then
I don't like Family Guy.
But then they have those episodes where they're just trying to push a joke too much, or they like make a joke last too long. Like if they would have cut off the punchline at a certain point, it would have been funny, and they try to extend that punchline out another 5 minutes, and it just kind of gets tired.
And they have an animation of it all the whole time. You're just sitting there like, this sucks.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel.
Great.
No,
that's how I feel about like It's Always Sunny and Family Guy and a lot of those shows is I mean, and it's just a victim of the times of TV. Where it's like you have to like they can't just sit there and like South Park and The Simpsons got in, as long ago as they did into being able to do their certain style of comedy, so where like South Park can do whatever they want, but since it's kind of in like ingrained in the DNA of South Park, they get away with it. Like they can go and make fun of whoever, make whatever joke, say whatever they want, and it's like ingrained. But if Family Guy was to try to do some of the stuff that South Park did, and still does, they would be off the air. And that's just kind of, I think, that South Park got in before the politically correct crowd got so involved with things that they're still allowed to make fun of a bunch of things that wouldn't otherwise be acceptable.
My thing is just the animation. I can't watch cartoons.
It's hard for me to watch cartoons now.
The only show that I could watch that's animated, it's a Netflix. It's F is for Family, the Bill Burr show. That show's great. I mean, it's set in the 70s.
Well, I mean, I can still watch the like classic cartoons that I watched growing up. Some of them I can't. Like I can't sit there and watch like Ed, Edd n Eddy. I can't. But I can still watch. Like I can watch Looney Tunes stuff all day. Like I can still watch those types of animations just because it's nostalgia now.
Well, I guess because I'm the only anime fan up in here. Like, yeah, I watch that all day.
Well, see, and like I watch Dragon Ball Super, and like I'll still watch Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, but that's the only like anime show that I watch.
That's like grained into us though. Like we grew up watching.
Yeah, trying to like actually make energy waves with our hands.
I swear one time I was in the closet
Hyperbolic time chamber.
Light all of a sudden turned on.
Yeah. And then there was a knock on the door, say, "Get the fuck out the closet." What's wrong with you?
What you doing?
What's wrong with you?
I'm 17 years old. All right, well, let's get on to the sports stuff that this podcast does. We, as I brought up, got the Red Sox-Yankees Game 4. Just started. Let's see. It's top of the first, 2 outs, runners on first and second. Hopefully, and for me, the Red Sox just take care of the Yankees tonight.
I think that's everybody.
Yeah.
Not everybody. There's a lot of Yankees fans.
Well, there's 3 of us here, so that's everybody.
Everybody that matters.
Except for the ones in New York.
And there's Yankees fans everywhere, unfortunately.
Disgusting.
But I really just want to see the Red Sox and the Astros more than I want to see like the Yankees actually get knocked out, because I think the Yankees and Astros would still be a good series. It was a good series last year, and it would be a good rematch, just like it was the same way with Cubs Dodgers the last 2 years, where like the Cubs knocked them out and then the Dodgers knocked them out, and it's nice to see those rematches in the playoffs. But I think with how powerful the Red Sox have been all year, and one of the only reasons, not the only reason, that they ended up with the top seed in all of baseball is because the Astros, for most of the year, were dealing with like Altuve, Correa.
All the injuries.
Yeah, they had a lot of injuries. But they were doing things that they did things that haven't been done in the majors. With their 4 pitchers having over 200 strikeouts on the season. Like their starting pitchers are just absolutely locked down. So how is this Red Sox lineup going to attack that pitching staff? And if the Astros do get to the bullpen with a lead, are they going to be able to retain the lead? So I think there's a lot more. There are more storylines Astros Red Sox than Yankees Astros. On the other side, talking Astros, since Yankees and Red Sox are still going on, the Astros just put a whooping on Cleveland, and Cleveland had a good team, and when I saw that they were throwing Trevor Bauer out of the bullpen, it kind of caught me off guard, and then I remembered that he had cut his hand or broke his hand on a comebacker just a couple months ago, and so he hasn't been in the starting rotation. And as I said, the Astros pitchers are tough. And Garrett Cole going on doing things that haven't been done ever in Major League history, was like the first pitcher in postseason history or the last however many years to have 12 strikeouts and no walks and 8 innings pitched. Like his start was just masterful, and then he gets to follow up Verlander.
Verlander had a no going into the 7th before he got broken up.
The 6th.
Yeah,
he had it through 5, and then he gave up a hit in the 6th. And then Dallas Keuchel pitched really well in Game 3, and then right, I believe that only went 3 games.
Yeah, that was 3 games.
I'm just because I feel like there was more baseball played, but that was probably because the Astros put up so many damn runs in Game 3 that it was like 2 games.
Speaking of things that haven't happened in postseason or just MLB history kind of deals, what about Brock Holt with the cycle?
Man,
the postseason?
Like the greatest thing about that is after when he's getting interviewed by Buster Olney, he goes, "Yeah, I knew I needed a home run, and I knew they had a position pitcher in the game. So I was telling my guys, hey, give me another at bat. Give me another at bat." and he went hunting for that home run. He goes, "I stepped up in the box and I just swung for the fences, got a short right porch over there. Like I kind of thought that I would just ground out to first or something, but I pulled it off and and
first time in postseason history.
First cycle in postseason history. listening to the Bill Simmons podcast, which I call out probably every week since that's one of the main podcasts I listen to. And,
so great.
He's really good. And he's a Bostonian. He's a big Red Sox fan. And he's like, before the series started, he was like, Brock Holt should play every game because he's one of the hottest hitters for the Red Sox. But then in games 1 and 2, they're playing Kinsler, and Kinsler looks like he retired about 7 years ago. I think Kinsler's soul got taken on that David Freese home run. Like, that's just kind of how it seems, and that's just one of those other jabs that I like to give Andrew about David Freese. Who came up big for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
But
he tends to do that.
But yeah, Brock Holt should have been playing this entire series. They put him in. He hits for a cycle. What we were talking about before the podcast started was the Severino thing. I think that's overblown from what just I've heard and seen. And people are, as y'all like kind of tossed around, is like the conspiracies of like how can he get to a ballpark with this time in New York City, like
traffic,
playoff game, so I think that's all overblown. He just got rocked by the most unique lineup, I guess. Unique's not actually the word I want. I'm just trying to come up with their offense is diversified. If that was the stock portfolio, that's the one you want to buy. Because they can beat you in so many different ways. In the Indians losing to the Astros, they've lost 9 straight elimination games. The last 9 times it was win or go home for them.
They went home.
I mean, most notably to me is Game 7 of the World Series, in which the Cubs won. But last year, them losing, anytime they're up against elimination, they lose. And this streak, I believe, dates back to 97, in which they lost to the Marlins in the World Series. And it's the longest in Major League Baseball history. And it was the first time they've been swept in a playoff series, I think, since 1970 something. So it was a weird series for them. They just never really got a foothold into the games. But the tip of the cap goes to the Astros pitching staff. They just
when you're going up against that, sorry.
It's okay, first 2 games on the road, facing guys who are hitting 100 miles an hour, dominating fastball, good breaking stuff, big strikeout number pitchers. Okay, so I'm used to seeing that. And then Game 3, they throw out this lefty who throws 88 miles an hour and pinpoints things, and you have to go up against his slider and curve and the stuff that Keuchel does. And it's a completely different approach to hitting against a guy like that.
It's just hard to adjust to that. Especially if a day.
2 days. So they had an off day to travel back to Cleveland, and then they faced Keuchel. And I mean, it's not like they don't know what he's going to do. If they watch film and they look at the numbers, they know what he's going to do. But it's one thing looking at okay, well, he likes to do this to right-handed hitters. He likes to do this to left-handed hitters. It's another thing to go out there and try to actually hit what he does.
Especially when it's breaking that good.
Yeah, so they took care of business, and the next round for them is going to be really exciting. On the NL side, you have the Milwaukee Brewers staying red hot, winning their 11th straight game, I believe it is, taking care of the Rockies. I couldn't help but be frustrated every pitch of that series because I'm looking at two teams that one of them won the game 163 to put the Cubs in the wild card game, and the other won the wild card game to knock the Cubs out of the playoffs. And I'm like the Cubs talent wise are better than both of those teams. And I
think definitely better than the Rockies.
Better. The Brewers don't have starting pitchers. Well, they have an amazing bullpen. Their bullpen, I think, pitched 14 innings and didn't allow a run against the Rockies. They Josh Hader might be the best relief pitcher in all of baseball, and he's not even their closer. So their relief pitching and their outfield are the best parts of their team. The Cubs have I think a more well-rounded team, and the higher top tier talent too. They just got tired, and I've had to tell people this when they're like, "What happened to the Cubs?" I'm like, if you watch, he
does that SpongeBob meme. What happened to the Cubs?
What? Yeah, well, and it's if you watch as much of the Cubs as I do, you would see that they were tired. They played 47 games in 49 days to end the season. They played 30 games in 31 days in August.
What was that quote by the great John Lester? Sometimes you just gotta have your dick put in the dirt in order to...
Yeah.
Whatever he said.
Yeah. And it's not having Addison Russell because of all the stuff that's going on with him. Chris Bryant coming off of his injury, not necessarily looking like the Chris Bryant that won the MVP a couple years ago. Not the starting pitching wasn't necessarily as top notch as they wanted it to be. Down the stretch, and their bullpen kind of fell apart too. It just kind of just a series of unfortunate events for the Cubs. But enough about them since they're out. Christian Yelich continues his torrid pace of just cementing the fact that he's the MVP of the National League this year. The Rockies, they are the better team out of them and the Rockies. The Rockies kind of had the same issues that the Brewers have as far as starting pitching goes, where if you get bad Kyle Freeland, you're not going to win that game. If you get good Kyle Freeland, there's a chance. But still, against the Brewers, if you don't put up runs, you're not and you get into that bullpen, you're not going to score on the bullpen, so you have to beat them in the first 3 innings if you're going to give yourself an 80 to 90% chance of winning. So the Brewers sweeping the Rockies go on to face the Dodgers, who took care of business against the Braves in 4 games. The Braves being the big surprise of the Major League season. They were supposed to be 2 years away with the young talent they have,
and it showed.
And game 3, Acuna, it becomes the youngest player to hit a grand slam in postseason history, and they still almost lose that game. They go up 5-0 in the 3rd inning. Or the 2nd inning, and the top of the 3rd, they give up 5 runs back, and it takes a Freddie Freeman home run, I believe, to give them a 6-5 lead, and they take care of that game, and they look like they might be able to push it to a game 5, but then the Dodgers came out with a sledgehammer and busted down the Braves' door, and Manny Machado looked like the Manny Machado that the Dodgers thought they were trading for. He had an error, but he makes up for it with home runs. And they, Clayton Kershaw was dominant. First time he pitched in the 8th inning in his postseason career. Some of it just because...
Way to go.
He's been in games where he should have been in the 8th inning pitching, when Dave Roberts took him out or Mattingly took him out because they thought that was the better play to have other guys, their setup man and their closer, get into the game and finish off the game. And there have been the games where he has those 7th inning woes where most people remember the home run he gave up to Matt Adams like 4 years ago now, in the 7th inning, that helped the Cardinals win that. So he did what he needed to do. Rich Hill looked really good yesterday. I can't think of the pitcher who pitched game 1.
Ryu?
Ryu. He looked great. So if they can pitch that way, Kershaw, I believe, is going to pitch game 1. And if they can sneak out game 1, I give them probably about a 90% chance of winning the series against the Brewers. And I mean, if you look at the team on paper, it should be the Dodgers winning that series, but with how the Brewers have been playing, they just have there's that magic feel that some playoff teams get, that just is like the Mets a couple of years ago, where they had a guy who just couldn't seem to get out, and Daniel Murphy, and that's Yelich this year, and they have a good chemistry and camaraderie, and they just ride a train into getting beaten down in the World Series.
Just that magical run sometimes that teams get.
Yeah. Somebody tweeted out like the comparisons of this year's Brewers being on this 11-game win streak to the Rockies of 2007, who entered the postseason on like a 10-game win streak, swept the first 2 rounds and got to the World Series, and ended up losing in the World Series that year. So we'll see how. I think this one, like this series is going to be a good series just because of how the teams match up. But I think everybody would put this series on the back burner to watch whoever faces the Astros. Like, that's the marquee series going into the championship series.
Because essentially whoever comes out of that is going to be favored to take it all.
Yeah, definitely.
And checking in, we have top second just ended, still 0-0. Yankees, Red Sox. So round 2 will start Friday, I believe. If let's see,
the ALCS? The Saturday.
The AL and the
NLCS. The
NLCS.
NLCS starts Friday. The ALCS starts Saturday.
Yeah.
So come next Tuesday, we'll be talking a little bit about the first couple games of those series, and we'll see where we're at.
Will one of them be done by then?
No.
Friday, Saturday, Monday. Wait, is it best of 7 or best of 5?
Best of 7.
Okay.
Yeah. So, the
This
Dodgers.
whole best of 5.
Yeah,
shit.
the Dodgers Brewers will be in Game 4. So there is a chance that we are recording during the last game of the NLCS, but we'll see. Again, we'll see how that plays out, and we'll talk about it then. But for now, let's move on into the NFL recap of the week. Week 5 wrapping up last night. Saints just trouncing the Redskins.
As expected.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the line was like 6 or something. Like, it wasn't as high as it probably could have been. And Mark Ingram came in, and you could just tell from the start of the game that the Saints had a plan. They had 2 plans. One,
Get Drew Brees that record.
Scratch that. They had 3 plans. Plan number 1 was get Drew Brees that record as quickly as possible,
First half.
so that they could get it off of their minds and then just go and win the game. As after Drew Brees got that record, he goes and hugs Sean Payton, and they like have their embrace, and then he goes, "Now let's go win a football game." and he runs back out because that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to get that record and then go win a football game.
Well, he even had the right mindset at the beginning of the game where they showed clips of him hyping up the team at the beginning.
Yeah.
Talking about this is about us. Like, he's trying not to make it about him breaking the record and all that.
But that's all talk because they already know what it's about.
Well, I mean, they all know, but like...
As soon as that completion was made, his hand was in the air like, I got it.
Yeah.
It was like for them to like stay focused on.
I did like that the first guy that like gave him a hug was Teron Armstead, who's been with the Saints for like the last 8-9 years or however long he might.
The longest.
Yeah, he's
with them.
Yeah, so it's like the first guy is his starting left tackle, his like blindside blocker, and so that was a cool moment. It's also. I also find it kind of intriguing to see who's on the other end of these records for these quarterbacks. Like when Favre was breaking records and Manning's breaking records and Brady's broken records. It's always interesting to see like who was the receiver that like caught that touchdown pass. Because like 9 times out of 10, it's like 8th stringer.
That's what I was about to say. Somebody off the practice
like
squad.
It's not like. Well, Manning and Harrison have all their records together, and you can think of Brady and Gronk and Brady and Moss and those guys. It's always funny to see. It's like, oh yeah, Peyton Manning threw to Dante Moncrief in the third quarter to get his 500. Like, just it's always this random dude.
Yeah.
It seems like they picked up off the street, threw him in a football like jersey, and like. Run!
What if it was off of that swatted pass that he caught?
That would have been amazing. If he
Drew
Brees
caught his own pass,
ran 62 yards
to get his record.
They would have probably had to pull him out the game because he was so tired. Just there with the oxygen mask.
He was hustling though.
Well, and so like after he got that record, the broadcast pointed out as like, after the 3 touchdowns, whatever he had, he's at 499, and so it looked like they were going to try to get him 500 that same night and get him into the 500 touchdown pass club that only 3 other people were in. But once they got to that 2-minute warning, that's when they were like, "You're not getting it," and they pulled him for Teddy. And I was disappointed because I want to Teddy needs to get into game action because like Teddy Bridgewater is probably going to be your starter in 2 years. Like everybody's saying Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is our age. He's 28 years old and he's a rookie in the NFL. Teddy Bridgewater is 26. Like Teddy Bridgewater is the future of the Saints. Like they need to get him game action. They need to get him that Jimmy G time.
Yeah, he's already proven.
But they need to get him into their system. Like give him some game reps in that system. See what he's doing, and if he can get it, and if he can, then you're like, all right, you hold off. When Drew retires, we know we have you. You'll take over, and you can be our Aaron Rodgers.
That's why Teddy he was so like. Oh, I'm good sitting back behind Breeze.
Yeah.
Just soak it all in, bro.
Yeah, it's like, and especially if I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well...
Especially if my leg almost fell off a year ago.
2 years.
2 years, either way. Scar's still healing, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's... I think he's in it was a great move by Peyton to do it, or the New Orleans staff to get him. And... it was stupid of some teams to not go and get him, a.k.a. Jacksonville.
Or even trade him, a.k.a. whack-ass Jets.
Well, the Jets didn't. Oh, you're saying they shouldn't have traded him?
Yeah.
No, they should have traded him because they do have their quarterback of the future in Sam Darnold.
Trash.
I wouldn't say trash.
When he gets a hold of...
Give him some time, shit.
Yeah.
He would have had time sitting behind.
It's like playing basketball against a 5-year-old and telling him he's trash.
But
you see the pros do it all the time.
There's a difference. So you don't want a young quarterback sitting behind another young quarterback. Because what's going to happen is tensions are going to rise. And then, I mean, hopefully you will have a situation like Kansas City where it's like, yeah, we're going to sit you behind Alex Smith, who's like 33, 34 years old anyways. In the moment we get a chance, Alex Smith is being shipped off because you're obviously better, but we still want to give you a year to actually understand what we're trying to do, see it in action, get up to NFL speed. And that's why you see Mahomes doing the stuff he's doing, is because he knows NFL speed now. He wouldn't have known NFL speed if he started week 1 last year. Just like first pass of Darnold's career was the pick 6, and he's still having issues. A lot of people hyped him up after that Lions game, but the Lions gave up a punt return touchdown. They had a fumble return for a touchdown or a pick 6 or whatever it was. They gave up 38 points, 38 of the 48 in the third quarter, and one of them was a touchdown pass. So
just opening up old wounds, huh?
It was just, well, I'm not talking Lions here. I'm talking Sam Darnold's hype, the hype train behind him because of the week 1 performance when he really didn't play a great game. It was just better than what people expected him to do, and they look at, they scored this many and they beat this team by this many. It must be the quarterback.
Yeah, then you go into next week and you see how horrible he was.
And then this week the Broncos playing on short rest and traveling 2,000 miles and playing a day game. They looked all out of sorts. So with that's the young quarterback thing is I think, yes, they're more prepared to enter the league, but you also need to give them the time to spread their wings and understand oh shit, this linebacker in college wasn't as fast as me. I could just run around him. This linebacker in the NFL is twice as fast as me and is also stronger than that linebacker and will knock my head off if I give him a clean shot.
Unless you're Drew Brees, who's just running over linebackers.
It's making spin moves.
I'm telling you, boy, he was hustling.
Boy, young, huh?
Damn. I was being a little spry, huh?
Well, Taysom Hill was the one that ran over a linebacker in last night's game.
That wasn't Drew?
Mm-mm.
Man, they changed so much.
They look.
And they're the same fucking size.
Yeah, they look. They're not the same fucking size because you look at them on the
close
sideline.
enough. They're both white. They had the ball.
You white, you Drew Brees.
You white, you have the ball, and you run over, and you're smaller than a linebacker. You Drew Brees.
You Drew Brees.
I was like, oh shit. I was like, damn, Drew is just feeling it tonight.
But yeah, you can look back at all the recent quarterbacks that have come into the league that have been mobile-esque quarterbacks, and they try to make a play and it's oh shit, this isn't gonna work. Deshaun Watson, who has the ability to make a lot of stuff happen on his feet, there are times where he doesn't realize, oh wait a minute, I need to slide here, I need to pump the brakes here because this player is going to make a play. And that was the RG3 curse, is he didn't realize that he needed to just...
He didn't know how to slide.
Yeah, he needed to just remember about his torn ACLs.
He remembers that the only way to go down is to be tackled.
And so
they're trying to be like Cam Newton.
Yeah, so we started with the Monday night game. Let's bounce it back to the Thursday night game, the first game of the week, which was Colts-Patriots. The Colts were missing 9 of their starters, and the Patriots got Julian Edelman back. They're doing what the Patriots do every year. I was listening to Michael Lombardi talk about it on GM Street, and he's like, Bill Belichick always says, I figure out what I have in September, and then he makes his adjustments for the rest of the year. And that's why their September record for the last 8 years hasn't been the 800 winning percentage that they've had. And then November, December rolls around, they get into the cold weather games, and they know what they have talent-wise and what scheme they need to run, where they need to make adjustment. That's when they, go 8-0, and then they're like, oh, when the fuck did the Patriots become 13-3? They were 2-3 after 5 games. What the hell's going on here? And that's the reason. So You watch them against the Colts, and the Colts were shorthanded, and it kind of goes to the Dolphins game last week too with the Patriots. Is they realize James White should really only be used as a receiving back, and Sony Michel is your running back. And so what they started doing is putting them in the backfield together at the same time. And they're running plays that like use the misdirection of Michelle running it and James White going out for a pass, and like they're going to be unstoppable going forward. Because if Gronk stays healthy and Brady stays healthy,
Josh Gordon stays clean.
Josh Gordon doesn't become an idiot again, and Julian Edelman stays clean, there's no reason why they shouldn't score like 34 a game.
And then when you got Devin McCourty going out there, 13 tackles, forcing the fumbles.
Their defense
Like,
is going to do
making plays
a lot
for
of
your
this,
defense.
like they're going to do a lot of the same things that the Patriots defense does. Is they might give up a bunch of yards, and then once they get into that like red zone area, they'll cause havoc, create plays, get sacks when they need it. And so the Patriots, they look like they're figuring it what they need to do out, which is scary because they're in such a terrible division that's like an easy 6 wins for them. I don't think they lost to a division. I don't think they lost to a division rival yet. One of the surprising outcomes of this weekend was the fact that the Falcons only put up 17 points on Pittsburgh.
You're surprised about that?
And with Julio Jones.
Like, the Falcons have averaged like 34 points a game this year. Pittsburgh averages like allowing 30 points this year. Like, their defense is garbage. The Falcons have a lot of talent offensively, and they've been on a roll lately. And I thought that game was going to be like a 45-40 type of game where just points were going to be scored everywhere on both sides. So, like I told my manager to bench Aaron Rodgers. Like, this is the only week you're going to bench Aaron Rodgers because he's probably going to put up a decent number of points, but Matt Ryan should put up 35 or more. And Matt Ryan had 1 touchdown pass and put up like 14 points or something like that. Like, he had a terrible game, and like I'm just like, what the hell's going on? Like, I put in Calvin Ridley into my starting fantasy lineups because I was like, he's going to get a touchdown. Like, that's just how the game should be. Like, it should be 100-93. Like, that's
Get a little crazy.
You're saying that they've been averaging 30 points this season?
I know that they only scored 12 in game 1, and then they scored like 36 against the Saints. They scored 30 or 24 against the Panthers, and I think they scored like 38 last week or something like that.
Well, guess the Panthers. Well, week 1 they scored like 14. Week 2 against the Panthers, 31. I think week 3 they played the Bengals.
Yeah, and they lost that game on the last second. They might have had like 28. I think they lost like 30.
It wasn't the Bengals. I'm sorry. That was the Saints game where they put up the 37 and lost to the Saints. And then week 4 against the Bengals,
they were in position to win that game, and they gave up the touchdown late to AJ Green. And I believe they scored in the near the high 20s at least.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, there's games in here in the season where they have like scored like 17 points or less.
They scored 36 on the Bengals.
All right, yeah, 36.
So after week 1, because week 1 was that dud of a game where they scored 12.
Yeah.
They've gone the 31 right on the Panthers.
Yeah, and then
31,
37 against the Saints.
37, 36. And then this dud of a game against the Steelers where they scored 17.
Yeah, it's like the pattern is
Yeah.
current. Yeah.
I mean, And to be fair again to the Falcons, the 3 games they've scored in the mid-30s have all been in domes, and the 2 games that they've scored less than 20 have been outside.
Yeah.
But that goes to the Sark criticism. And speaking of criticism, let's get to the clapper.
God damn it.
So
why?
So Will Kane is a Dallas guy, and he's a big Cowboys fan, and he pulled up the stats where in the Dak Prescott, Zeke Elliott era, they have gone for it 19 times on 4th and 1. They have converted 18 of 19 times. And in overtime, on like the 42-yard line, they decide to punt.
I think Jason Garrett wants out.
Like
just looking for a way.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna see how far I can go before Jerry gets tired of me.
Well, I think Jerry's already tired of him because he finally saying like.
He backtracked it. He backtracked. Today on the radio, he was like, "Well, I mean, there's a time to make these decisions," and like he was saying that, you know, I could understand him trying to do that. Like, no. He also in the same interview said that they haven't had a number 1 receiver in years, which is another funny thing to do because, you know, he's like buddy with Dez.
Yeah, then Dez Bryant tweeting back crying and shit. They've never put me in any schemes and stuff. You led the league in drop passes. Like.
So, y'all, you two know, and whoever's listened to me rant about this know my feelings about coaching in the NFL. It's what separates a good team from a great team, and it really sticks out when you're a bad team.
Yep.
You look at, like, we all think the Browns are supposed to be pretty good this year. Me and you, Alvin, had them like winning 8 games. Then you watch them and you're like, God, Hugh Jackson is a Nimrod. Like,
yeah. Hugh Jackson's costed them.
Well, and
kicker cost them one.
The overtime thing, like, people are like, does he not know overtime rules? Because, like, he's holding up the 2, and so they're like, is he trying to tell his team there's still 2 seconds on the clock? And by the time that field goal was kicked and it went through, and I looked at the time too, and I was like, oh, there's still 2 seconds. Like, they can still blow this because I forgot it was overtime. Like, the game went on so long and the overtime went on so long, I just forgot it was overtime too. And I'm sitting at home watching the game. I don't have all the energy of, like, having to kick a field goal to win the game and figure out where the players are going. And, like, you can see the refs are even saying, like, get off the field, and, like, the Browns are all, like, trying to get off the field so that they can finish the game. Not, like, it looked like a lot of people didn't realize that it was overtime and the game was over.
Yeah.
But Scott Linehan and Jason Garrett are just, they're garbage.
Horrible,
again, bringing up Will Kane, he posed a very solid question. If Jason Garrett was fired right this moment, would he get a job in the NFL?
No.
Like, not even just head coaching job, like
an assistant job,
coordinator.
No.
Not even a quarterback coach.
And the only thing that I could see is I could see him being a quarterback coach because he was a quarterback in the league, and he does understand quarterbacks. I think head coach is just too much responsibility. That I think that he was, if he was to go to, and this might sound blasphemous because of how great this head coach is, like, scheming wise, but if he was to go to, like, the Rams and like work with Sean McVay and Jared Goff, who are both young guys, and like. Because he's not going to call the plays. He's not going to have the big voice in that. It's McVay. McVay understands, like, this is mine. Like, this is my baby. I'm going to raise it the way I want.
Yep.
Like, you can help mentor and, like, help us see things that we might not have seen. And that's where I think, like, he could be of use. But he's going to end up being, like, he's going to be Baylor's next head coach. Like when Matt Rule gets fired.
That's how far you're gonna go. You're gonna go down to college, bro.
That's not even a top tier college. Like he's not going to replace Tom Herman at UT. No, he's not going to replace Jimbo Fisher at A&M. He's not going to go replace Lincoln Riley when Lincoln Riley gets a head coaching job in the NFL at OU. Like no, he's having to fall down into like a mid-tier to low-tier D, like big five school, because that's just how bad it looks now. When you have like 4 straight years of 8-8, and then you have a great year, and then the next year with the same team you have another like 8-8 year, or no, you have that like 4-12 year,
yeah,
and then you have a 13-3 year, and then you have a 6 like what the hell's going on, man? I'm not even a Cowboys fan in this group.
that game was just frustrating to watch, bro.
Yeah,
and then like the whole. Like the 2 interceptions, I can't even blame Dak Prescott for the 2 interceptions.
He got rocked. He was just trying to. Deshaun Watson threw the interception too.
Oh yeah, when he got.
Because I was thinking of his interception. He got rocked and he's trying to make a play. Yeah. But Dak Prescott, yeah, it was just they didn't use Zeke enough, and it's one of those we've talked about it earlier in the after game 1, I believe, where it's like. Yeah, he's not effective after 15 carries. Don't just stop giving him the ball.
Yeah.
Like still
feed him. Find a way to get him the ball.
Get him the ball 25 times a game. Like
because the receivers apparently can't catch the ball to begin with.
Well, there's that, but it's also running the ball tires out the defense more because it wastes more time and it's more physical. Because run blocking is way more physical than pass blocking is.
And they was just sending run blitzes all day too. Like Clowney and Watt, they was just coming off the edges. They weren't doing no fancy stunts, no nothing. They was just rush the edges.
Yeah, and Houston did just enough to win my bet. Which I forgot that I had even placed. I went into... I'm like, oh, what are the lines like next week? And I started looking, and then I saw that I had an open bet still, and I was like, wait a minute. If I have an open bet, that means I haven't lost yet. What's my bet? And I go and look, and I had like a 6-team teaser where I needed the Texans to cover like plus 2.5. And so I was panicking when the Cowboys were driving in overtime. I'm like, shit, am I gonna lose this? On the last game of the night by a field goal. And thank the Lord that Jason Garrett coaches the Cowboys.
Fucking horrible.
That's bad.
And going from y'all's team to my team, the Lions. They looked pretty good. Not as good as the score might indicate, being up 24-0 on the Packers. The defense played really well. This is another instance where it's kicking and coaching that help a team lose, because Mason Crosby had the worst night of his life.
Missing Crosby?
Missing Crosby.
It was 3, right?
5. He missed 4 field goals and 1 extra point. And the great thing about it is right at the last second of the game, they allow him to kick a field goal and make it. It didn't matter, but it was they just want him to make one, so it's
just
he has confidence. Yeah. Kenny Golladay and Kerryon Johnson are going to be a problem for years to come in this Lions offense. And it's it bugs the shit out of me every time I see LeGarrette Blount carry the ball. And I'm like, why waste it down? He's not gonna run for more than 4 yards. He'll get lucky if you get 4 yards out of him. His average carry right now is 1.5 yards per carry. You are wasting it down by handing him the ball. I'm okay if they hand him the ball on the goal line the way that they have.
Just make him a goal line.
but if he's your main backs are Kerryon Johnson, who left the game early because of an ankle injury, so then I'm okay with it. But then you have Theo Riddick. Like, they're your two backs. You don't need... Look at the Saints. They don't need a third back. They tried a third back. It didn't work. They traded him after week 2 last year. And then they also had Gillislee, and that didn't work either. So they cut him.
Yeah, I was just like, seen him.
They have Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. Those are their running backs, and they're sticking to it. And then they have Taysom Hill, who's a running back.
Disguised as a quarterback.
Yeah, disguised as Drew Brees.
Seriously.
But
can't tell the two apart.
But this going the Lions are realizing this is the guy that we need to feed the ball to, the same way that for whatever reason it seems like the Cowboys forget that Zeke is that back, because the Rams sure don't forget that Todd Gurley is that back. The Saints sure don't forget that their back is their back. The Steelers, when Le'Veon's in, they know we're getting the ball to him as many times as we can, as long as it's not to the detriment of the team. 3-0 Red Sox.
Bottom of the third.
Let's get it. Third.
0 out.
Let's get it.
So it looks like the Lions are really figuring out who they are, which is good because they're getting into the prime time of their schedule, and the Vikings haven't looked the same. The Packers don't look the same, and the Bears are the surprise team. They're 3-1 coming off of their bye, but they've only played the one division game against the Packers, in which they lost. On the Packers side of this game, I touched on missing Crosby. The fact that Aaron Jones isn't getting the ball, and people were like, well, they were down this much, so they needed to have their passing backs, like running backs in, their receiving running backs in. I'm like, no, it was in the first half still. You can still run the ball with Aaron Jones, who's, averaging like 6 yards a carry in his career. And if you haven't noticed, the Lions' run defense is terrible. The 3 games they've lost, they've given up an average of like 180 yards on the ground.
Y'all ain't got no run stoppers, man.
I know. So it's like, why not just keep giving him the ball? And it got to the point that Aaron Rodgers was like, I don't know why he's not in the game. Like, he knows how important Aaron Jones is to this team and their success because of how good he is. And yet, Mike McCarthy and the offensive coordinator there and that the people who make the personnel decision are like, no, we're going to put in Ty Montgomery and we're going to put in Williams. And
like I said, they're too reliant on having Rodgers save the day for them.
Right. And the most successful teams don't rely on their quarterback.
They're balanced.
Like, I mean, you want to have a quarterback you can rely on, but you want to also be as balanced as possible. So even while Tom Brady's winning Super Bowls and he's thrown for like 400 yards in the Super Bowl, you're also looking at him know when he needs to run the ball. They get in the right personnel. They get in the right scheme. He sees, all right, this is when I need to say hut. This is the direction we need to run the ball. That gives us the best opportunity to win. Whereas Drew Brees, who's breaking records and all of these passing stuff, like if he could possibly have another Super Bowl if Peyton and the people who make those personnel decisions say, we need to cut back on the yards Drew Brees is throwing, we need to run the ball a little more, and we need to focus on the fact that we need a defense that can allow us to not have to throw the ball so damn much. And you look at them last year. They finally figured out how to stop teams from scoring a bunch of points. So they had a good defense last year. They started running the ball a lot more. Drew Brees' numbers dropped a little bit to where I think it was the first time in like 5 years that he hadn't thrown for 5,000 yards. And they should have gone to the NFC Championship game had it not been for the Minneapolis Miracle. Like, so it's like they were right on the path to making it to the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl if it wasn't for that one play. But it was because they changed up the way that they were going about playing that allowed them to make those advancements. That was one of the things that's plagued Peyton's career, is that they were so reliant on him and his offensive mind and how great he was that they were like, we'll just ride you. In the Super Bowls that he won, yeah, he was good, but he didn't need to be as great as he was, because he had defenses that could make stops when they needed to. He had a decent enough running game with Joseph Adai in 2006, and the Broncos Super Bowl. The defense was the number one defense in the league, or number two defense in the league behind Seattle. So it's like they didn't need to run the ball as much because their defense was just outstanding. And so that's what, going forward, that's what the Packers need to do. Like, yeah, Aaron Rodgers might be the most talented quarterback of all time. Like, he can do things as a quarterback that no other quarterback has done in NFL history, but at some point you need to realize that all that isn't going to win you a Super Bowl, because he only has one. He's made it to the NFC Championship game, I think, twice. He's like, other than that, there's not a lot of success for him other than all the individual accolades that the Drew Breeses have, the Peyton Mannings, the Dan Marinos have. Like,
I think out of the 12 or 13 seasons he's been there, they've only been to the playoffs 6 times. It was like something like that.
I think it's more than that.
It was pretty low. It was like Eli Manning stats.
Because I've been a Lions fan during the whole thing. So it's like, I know the Lions aren't making the playoffs.
Minnesota just started making the playoffs.
Yeah, Minnesota made the playoffs, I think, maybe early when he started. But we have Pro Football Reference to go on this. Let's see. The Bills get another surprising win, eking out a victory against the Titans in, the second ugliest game of the year, behind the Titans and the Jags game from a couple weeks ago that ended 9-6. Josh Allen, he has special gifts that I think will allow him to be he can be. We had this discussion last week, I think, the Matt Ryan, Andy Dalton kind of quarterback, where he's not going to be the best quarterback in the league, but he's going to be serviceable enough to win you football games. Like, he's not going to be Blake Bortles bad. Like, he's gonna be able to win and all of that. So all of the rookie quarterbacks this year, they look like they're going to be like in that top half of quarterbacks going forward, whereas like you can win a Super Bowl with them. And Josh Allen made enough plays to sneak out a win against a 3-1 Titans team that looked like they were figuring themselves out, and then they just lay an egg for whatever reason.
Trap game.
So Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers' career have been in the playoffs 9 times. And he has been their starter for 11 seasons.
So 9 out of 11.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Who was that for?
Aaron Rodgers.
Let's talk about Drew Brees, though.
You said Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, you said Aaron Rodgers.
That's why he talked about being a Detroit fan. I'm talking about Minnesota.
Fan and like.
Oh, I could have sworn I said Drew Brees because I thought.
No. Drew Brees definitely.
Yeah,
that's.
Oh,
Like,
I was all like Aaron Rodgers. Like, why is he bringing up Aaron?
No, that's what we were talking about. I was like, man,
wait a minute.
It doesn't sound right at all.
Aaron Rodgers has definitely been winning that division every year. So Aaron Rodgers needs his help too, though, because even though he's made the playoffs that many times, it hasn't accounted for much. Are there any surprises of this season, or not this season, of this last week that y'all want to touch on? I guess we should touch on
Jets and Broncos.
Yeah, that was a little surprising. Or we can go to the Ravens scoring 9 points against the Browns.
Oh man.
The Browns defense is legit though.
But yeah, it is. Their offense isn't.
Yeah.
The offense is young.
And the Browns have been in their 5 games and 4 overtime games.
Mm-hmm.
And they could legitimately be 5-0.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately. Like, it's not like they...
if they had a better coach, they would be.
They scratched out a comeback to make it 7 points. It's not like one of those where it's like, oh, well, they only lost this game by 1 point. I'm like, yeah, but they were down 22 with, 6 minutes to go, and that other team really just didn't care. And it's like they...
What needs to happen for Hugh Jackson to be gone?
A disappointing season this
No,
this is already more than...
No, this... So, he got hired with the expectation that he was going to have a few... They were trusting the process. They were doing what the 76ers did. They were pretty much tanking a couple of years to get a young roster, get top picks, land those picks properly, because if you look at their history, not all of their picks have landed. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they're the team that drafted Trent Richardson.
Yep.
So
and then the Colts fell for it.
Well, they needed a running back.
They thought they had one.
So they had the expectation of all right, look, we're going to give you a few years to suck, lose a bunch of games, get the culture you want here, get the players you want here, and when you have those, that's when you're going to need to get us to the playoffs like that. So the fact that they're competitive this year, if they play every game the way that they've been playing and they lose the rest of their games this season, I don't think he's fired. But if they start getting blown out the rest of the season and they don't win another game, then you have to fire him, because then it's just not working. But even last year going winless, they were competitive in a lot of games. They're right there. So I think you want to give him a year with Baker Mayfield and Nick Chubb and Njoku and Landry and the team that they have. Give that defense another year to grow together, and I would say give them this year to still feel it out, and next year is the deciding year where it's okay, if you don't go 9-7 at bare minimum with this team, you're out. And you could probably say if you don't make the playoffs with this team, you're out.
So you're giving him one more year?
I'd give him this year, because I don't think he understands what he has yet. That's the tricky part. Is I don't think he understands the type of team that he has.
Because it just seems like he's taking a lot of criticism this year already. They're winning and they're still... Because it's shit that everybody sees too.
Yeah, it goes to that. There's bad coaching around the league, and
if Hard Knocks wasn't there, it'd be a different story.
Yeah.
With Hard Knocks being in Cleveland this year, everyone saw
the type of coach
they saw him there, and it's just no, that's not.
Yeah, they saw the type of coach he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't watch Hard Knocks. I don't ever watch Hard Knocks. And
I mean, he's a player's coach. That's what he.
I go by what I see on the field, and how I see you can see what schemes they're trying to do, and the idea, you can see somewhat of an idea, and when you can't see an idea of a line of thinking that led them to making this decision, that's when you're you're probably not suited for doing this.
It's just
which circles back to the Jason Garrett 4th and 1 decision.
It's like mismanagement too, like the whole overtime thing. Like
now, where would we put Andy Reid in best coaches in the NFL?
Talking about current or all time?
Current. Like, where do we put him as far as best coaches in the NFL?
I mean, you have to put him at the top.
He's up there, like top 5.
Now, what are his inefficiencies?
Defense.
Strong.
That.
Strong.
But mainly, for him, it's his management of the game. Like, he doesn't use timeouts well. He doesn't manipulate the clock, the end of halves, end of game situations where it's like, okay, we have the ball up 6, 4 minutes left. He doesn't have a 4-minute offense to win the game without giving the other team the ball back. And so it's like he's a great coach with flaws that they need to figure out. But like you don't want to not have Andy Reid because of his 2-minute deficiencies. With Hugh Jackson, it's like you don't want to get rid of somebody who the players like playing for, they compete for, they really put in their best effort for. You don't want to get rid of him and then bring in a coach that, this was one of the things about over the offseason that was criticized with what was going on in Detroit. Jim Caldwell was loved by the Lions. They loved Jim Caldwell. He was a player's coach. But he wasn't a good enough coach to elevate them. And then they bring in Patricia, who's a Bill Belichick disciple, who comes in as a hard ass, making them practice and do all these extra things, and they don't like it. And so the game 1, it looked like they just ignored everything, and they weren't prepared because they were just rebelling against what the coach was wanting them to do. So you don't want to lose Hugh Jackson because he might have issues with like knowing what he should run on a 3rd and 7 with 1:30 left. If
screen pass.
No.
Jason Garrett.
We've seen that.
And so like that's the tricky part with the Hugh Jackson thing is like he's loved by the teammates. He was a great offensive coordinator, so it's not like he doesn't know what's going on there. And this is the most talent he's had as a head coach. So it's like you don't want to just say, you helped build this roster, but we're not actually going to see what you can do with it going forward. So that's why I say give him the year, give him a little while.
Poor Mark Jackson.
Exactly. but to that point, you saw what he could do with that roster. You saw where he could take them, and when they lost that year in the playoffs, you could realize there was a limit to the potential because offensively he handicapped Clay and Steph. He was like, no, we want to run 20 seconds off the shot clock, get this kind of shot, and then but he taught them, even though their situation is special because of the way that they were drafted, who Clay and Steph are, the sons of professional basketball players, getting in the X factor and Draymond Green, being able to bring in Iggy, they were specially constructed to do what they're doing. But Mark Jackson was like, y'all need to focus on defense. You should be the best defensive team in the league, and you should move the ball and love moving the ball. That's what he taught him because that's what he was known for. He's third or fourth. I think he might be fourth now in career assists, and he was a defensive stalwart at the point guard position. Well, you bring in the absolute opposite. Guy who couldn't play defense could shoot the ball 20 times better than him at that minimum. And he says, no, y'all's strengths are the fact that you two guys are the best shooters that we've ever seen in this league. Go shoot the fucking ball whenever you want to shoot the fucking ball.
Even if it is 45 feet.
So
from the logo.
So Mark Jackson got them to the top, which is the Detroit Lions thing. Like, Jim Caldwell got them as far as they could go with Jim Caldwell. He wasn't going to elevate that team any further than the where they got. And then you bring in a guy who could possibly help unleash another aspect of the game to make them take the next step. And the Golden State Warriors, they're obviously way more talented than this Lions team is.
Clearly.
And
no argument there.
So we'll see how it ends up there. And I did touch on Andy Reid. He's 5-0 for the second straight year. I thought Jacksonville was going to come in here and get a good Blake Bortles performance, have a solid running game, be able to move the ball on the Chiefs, and really help limit that offense from scoring a bunch of points. So I thought the Jags could win this game. And then you watch it, and you're like, yeah, that's bad Blake, and they can't run the ball because their best running back can't stay healthy. Their best corner, it depends on where you're on this side, because I think Boye is probably their best cornerback, but Jalen Ramsey's the mouth, so people see him as the best cornerback.
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey's matched up against the cheetah, and like
got burned.
Like, well, like, what do you expect? It's like, all right, I'm going to line this guy up who runs like a 4.5 against this guy who runs like a 4.2.
That's not even fair, because Jalen Ramsey's not even slow. He's a fast guy too.
Yeah,
but this guy's just that much faster.
He's faster. Yeah, like that's. I mean, and Tyreek Hill didn't have a great game in any by any stretch of the means.
But just getting that one burner by him, like.
so I mean, Jalen Ramsey held his own, but it was just like then you have to deal with Travis Kelce and Kareem Hunt and Sammy Watkins and the rest of the team, and then you get to run a bootleg on the goal line, and Patrick Mahomes is faster than your linebacker, because you also have to kind of wait back, because he'll just throw the ball from any angle wherever his feet are, because that's the type of arm talent that this guy has.
With either hand.
so it's not like you can. Some quarterbacks, they roll left, and you're like, there's no way he's going to put enough on this pass. I can just sprint to him and make him throw the ball, because then we'll be able to make a play on the ball. But against him, you're like, if I sprint to him and I open up a yard of space, he's just going to rotate his shoulders and fire something in like at 115 miles an hour. And so it puts the linebackers in a tough situation. And he's able to beat them to the pylon and score that touchdown. So I was really impressed with the Chiefs, because I'm not surprised they won, but I picked the Jags to win this game just because I thought they would be able to do things to the Chiefs that would allow the defense to help control the game a little more, and neither happened. I mean, to be fair, Blake Bortles threw a damn football off of an offensive lineman's helmet, which ricocheted about 15 yards in the air and lands into a Chief's arm. So
Blake Bortles things.
Yeah, they got bad Blake in that game. So I think that's really the last game to touch on, unless y'all want to go to the mess that we call the New York Giants. No, but
nobody cares about the Giants.
I'm all for skipping them.
Well, my 3-team parlay off that 63-yard field goal, though, that felt nice.
Yeah, same like that. That was one of the games that I picked too. I had the Panthers.
Just the money line parlay. I had the Panthers, the Bengals, and the Pats.
Yeah, so my teaser, my 6-point teaser, I had Carolina minus half a point, Cincy plus half a point, Tennessee plus 2.5, the Chargers -1, the Rams -1, the Vikings plus 9, the Cardinals plus 10.5, and the Texans plus 3. And I hit all of them. I mean, to be fair, this, like, I think with teasers, I could probably win a lot more teasers than I try, because you get the extra 6 points on, and so you're like, oh, this line's 10. They're not gonna lose by more than 16.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a teaser.
Yeah, so
I'm good with my money line parlays.
Those are fun too. I like betting the spread. The spread is like, it's more exciting because you can hope for a team to like be down 9 and be like, just score a last second touchdown. Like, I don't care if you lose.
Just cover.
Just cover.
That's too much stress, man. That's way too much stress. Give me a heart attack. I just need to see the final.
So that's how you end up running from your bookie.
Yeah.
That's
next week.
That all brings us to our weekly On Fire and Dire and Prophecies segment, where I will start off my fire with the University of Texas Longhorns.
Hook 'em.
Pulling out a win. They were in control most of the game. OU did a good job about keeping it interesting,
scaring everybody.
They scored. They scored the touchdown right before half to make it 24-17, and then they go down 45-24. And I like went and showered it because I was like, 45-24, I can get ready to go do whatever I need to do, and come back out and it's 45-45, and I'm like, motherfucking Kyler Murray. Like, but there was the 2-minute drive where UT had the ball, and Sam Ellinger, like he played exactly how he's supposed to play, and like I like to take things from what like analysts say about it, because I don't sit and watch college football 24/7 like these guys, so like they're obviously gonna know more about things than I do about that sport or a player, and so what was said is like UT has been trying to use Sam Ellinger as a passing quarterback. They're trying to use him as a drop back, sling it around passer, when really he needs to be used like Tim Tebow at Florida. They need to run read options with him. They need to get him running. Like, he should be getting like 70 yards a game on the ground. And entering the OU game, he was UT's leading rusher, I believe. So they're utilizing their quarterback the way that his skill set lends itself to be used. And look at what they've done. They've won 5 straight games since that weird Maryland loss, but I don't really fault them for losing to Maryland, because that was Maryland's first game since they lost a teammate because of all the drama that was going on there. So Maryland had a lot more going on than UT did. So I don't fault them for that loss, and they've looked beating TCU, beating USC, beating OU on 3 straight weeks. Like, if they just need to handle their business, and they'll be knocking on the outside of the college football playoffs for the first time. And they have West Virginia at home the beginning of November, which is going to be a big game because you have Will Greer, who's going to be trying to solidify his Heisman hope, which, I mean, it doesn't look like anybody's going to beat Tua this year. But, I mean, Will Greer would have a chance, and so UT's just surprised a lot of people. I don't think there were a lot of expectations this year. It was just kind of a hope to be in that 8 to 9 win range, and they're well on their way. Alvin, who is on fire this past week for you?
This past week, just yesterday actually, Drew Brees, we touched on it already. Hands down, one of the best quarterbacks in our era, and he just keeps. I think he's underappreciated in most eyes. Like, when they talk about like top quarterbacks, everybody goes straight to like Rodgers, Brady, and everything like that. And I think
with fair point to go to them, and I mean, yeah, Drew Brees is like,
I feel like he's like an afterthought. Like you say Breeze, and then people be like, "Oh yeah, like Drew Brees."
Yeah. I mean, definitely. Like, and that's
underrated.
And that's the point where people I think have gotten with like Marino. Like, think about when people talk about like all-time great quarterbacks, they bring up Elway and they bring up Montana, and I'm not talking about like the guys from our generation.
No. Yeah.
They bring up Aikman before they bring up Marino.
Steve Young too.
Yeah, I'm like, Marino is better than. Marino was probably talent-wise, better than all of those guys. He just played on the Dolphins. He didn't have Walsh and Rice. Like, he didn't.
He just had Mercury.
No, Mercury was from the 70s.
He was on that team with them when they
and they made it
undefeated.
Marino wasn't on the undefeated team.
Yeah.
No. The undefeated team was 73. The Marino got drafted in that same draft with Elway in 83.
Could have sworn that was Marino's team.
No. Marino made it to the Super Bowl in like 1985, 6, like one of those years right around the Bears winning it. They made it to the Super Bowl and lost to the 49ers, if I'm not mistaken. But Marino played from 83 to, I want to say, like 99. And then he retired before the millennia.
1972. Don Shula's team.
Yeah. Marino played for Shula, but he wasn't there then.
It was Bob Grease.
Yeah. The father of Brian Greasy.
Yeah, there you go.
So Marino played from 83 to 99. But yeah, his numbers were ridiculous. He had the one 5,000 yard passing season until Drew Brees did it like 4 years or like 5 years ago, and that was in 1984 that he did it. His second year as a quarterback. Like, Marino doesn't get the same amount of love and it's because of, there's a stigma when you look back. It's like Marino didn't have any postseason success. He doesn't have a Super Bowl ring. He doesn't have any of this. Drew Brees, as you touched on, he's only been to the playoffs 6 of his 13 years, and like before he got to the Saints, he was good. Like, they had some really good teams with the Chargers. But they couldn't do anything, and it led to, Schottenheimer getting fired because they couldn't make any playoff runs. And
he also had that scary shoulder injury, too, that nearly ended his career.
He was almost drafted by Miami, and then he was almost signed by Miami. They almost took him twice in his career and didn't do it. But, he is... I mean, in my eyes, he is, the fourth of this generation behind Manning, Brady, and Rodgers. But, like, all of them have different things that they're great at. Like, those 3 guys, they're not as calculated and accurate as they are. They're not as accurate as Drew Brees, which is ridiculous.
His accuracy is like 67%
Like they all have a stronger arm than Drew Brees. They all have a bigger stature, like just physically, just more gifted. But like Drew Brees knows how to utilize what he can do better than, like, he doesn't have to rely. He doesn't have the ability to just rely on the sheer fact that he can throw a ball 50 yards downfield. He has to rely on his footwork, his shoulder, like, turning at the right time. Like, he has to rely on the mechanics. He's Greg Maddux, while all these other guys are Nolan Ryan.
And another thing that I didn't realize, with all the talented wide receivers that he created, Michael Thomas was the only Pro Bowl receiver he's had.
Well, I mean, his best receiver that he had played with before Michael Thomas was Marcus Colston.
Yeah, but he wasn't even a Pro Bowl receiver.
No, because he's not.
But I mean, like, he had the stats, right? Like,
he had statistics. Yes,
but he never made the Pro Bowl.
There were stats of receptions and yards and touchdowns for Colston, but like, the Saints offense has been so good for so long, not because of one guy. It's the same thing if you look at the Aaron Rodgers Green Bay Packers. Is like, yeah, Jordy Nelson is a good receiver, but through his career he's had it's been Greg Jennings and James Jones and
Randall Cobbs.
Yeah, Jermichael Finley's, and none of these guys you're gonna say are top 5 receiver in the league. Michael Thomas is a top 5 receiver in the league. If you're going to list top 5 receivers, you're probably going in some order: Odell, Julio, Antonio Brown, Michael Thomas,
AJ Green,
Tyreek Hill.
No. Tyreek Hill is not in that same category.
Really?
Not even close. Tyreek Hill is probably 14 on the list of best receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster is a better receiver than Tyreek Hill.
What the fuck?
Look at the numbers. If you're going to statistics-wise, Tyreek Hill isn't a route runner.
Well,
He's not a route runner, and he doesn't have the greatest hands either. He's just fast, and they utilize him in positions to make him look like a great player, which he is, because he's a football player. But if I'm thinking of great receivers, I'm looking at the guys who run crisp routes, high point the ball, great hands, and can go be positioned at anywhere in the field. And Tyreek Hill, I don't know if he can't do the same things that these other guys can do. He's great in his own regard, but I would put a lot of receivers above him. Adam Thielen's above him. Stephon Diggs is above him. Let's see.
Haven't mentioned DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, there's the guy that I meant to bring up earlier. He's the guy, he was my 5th. That's the guy I was gonna go with 5. It's DeAndre, Michael Thomas, Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, and Odell. Those are my top 5 receivers. So Drew Brees finally has that, and he also finally has a consistent running game too. So Drew Brees could probably play for another 2 years. I don't think it's going to happen. Andrew, your fire.
I was like, oh yeah, we're doing that shit, huh? Nah, my fire got the UFC killing it in the media. Going strong.
Hey,
got the biggest card that they've had, UFC 229.
We can't say killing in media in the same sentence in this day and age because there's too much of that shit going on.
Well, you know what? They're fucking killing it in there. They're having the biggest response to their biggest card in good ways and bad ways. Just they're getting talked about.
My balls was hot.
They've got UFC 230 already picking up hype mainly off of that interview, that post-fight interview with Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis and Daniel Cormier fighting for that heavyweight belt.
Well, and it's funny because in that interview he was like, "Man, I ain't thinking about no damn title fight. I need to go get my ass in the gym and work on my cardio."
They called me, told me got fight a Russian, got knock this motherfucker out. So
I forgot before the fight.
And so, of course, speaking of Russians, Khabib Nurmagomedov made Connor tap in 4, and then went after his jiu-jitsu coach.
Did what he needed to do, and the fight went the way that McGregor couldn't allow that fight to go. And we all watched it together, and after the fight, and y'all were both on Khabib's camp, and I was hopeful that McGregor could win, and all of my fears about McGregor losing and the way McGregor would lose, it was like, okay, if McGregor's losing, this is exactly the way that he's going to lose.
I think that bear that Khabib fought put up a bigger fight than McGregor.
McGregor was pinned on the mat the whole entire fight, bro.
Well, Khabib's wrestling skills are, probably the best in that weight class.
Could say that, yeah.
And look at another, title holder whose wrestling skills are the best in his weight class, and then like Cormier. It's like guys get into MMA because they're ready to like punch and kick, and they want to do that stuff, and they forget that grappling and ground game is a part of the trade and the technique. And
it also came out today. Dana White talked to TMZ, I think it was,
McGregor
saying
said that
Khabib is still going to keep his belt. They're not going to be stripping him whether or not he gets suspended or not.
Yeah. And McGregor already called him about wanting a rematch,
which probably won't happen. McGregor is on medical suspension for a month.
They're going to set up the Diaz 3.
I mean, they're going to do the trilogy.
Yeah, and that's the other fight that I wanted to touch on with the way McGregor lost is what I said Saturday night. I'm like, you look at his last 2 losses in the UFC, and it's been 2 guys that he's never really faced an opponent like that. Like, and so McGregor, being the cocky son of a bitch he is, he's like, I'm just gonna come in here and knock the bloke's head off.
But Khabib's next fight should and probably will be Tony Ferguson, who also fought on this card.
Yeah, which is like the best fight of the night.
That was the bloodiest fight of the night for sure.
Well,
the somersaults, to get rocked,
the 007 rolls.
Yeah,
man, that was a hell of a fight.
The capoeira, like the head kicks.
Somebody, I forgot who I was.
The jumping off of the fence, flying Superman punches. Like,
I think I was listening to Fighter and the Kid, and they were talking about. It looked like they were playing Tekken in real life. It was fucking Eddie Gordo.
Yeah. Like round 2 of that fight was by itself probably the best UFC fight I've ever watched. Just that round.
Tony Ferguson went from being rocked to somersaulting to somehow winning the round off of blood.
Yeah. Well, the only reason he wins that fight,
the broken hand,
was the broken hand.
The broken hand and the blood, yeah.
Yeah, and
I mean, because realistically, I mean,
that fight
fighters have fought with broken hands. It's not.
But he couldn't.
Uncommon.
He couldn't like defend himself and like do the things he needed to do, and so they would have just been like.
It was a combination of this doesn't look good and. You're already, and you've got a broken hand and you're already bloodied up. Yeah, it's gonna get worse.
A gashed eyebrow.
Have you seen that?
And the hairline.
Yeah, it was like that. Just round 2 alone.
Those were big.
Oh, it was.
I loved Pettis' interview though. He's all like.
Hell yeah!
He made it seem
like this is a tough ass Mexican, bro. He
made it seem like him and Ferguson was about to go have some cervezas. Hey, party at my house, come on.
Go chill on the beach with Tony Romo drinking Coronas.
But yeah, so Tony Ferguson will probably be, it should be Khabib's next fight. His next.
I think that's the smart long play. But I don't know if that's actually how UFC is going to do it. Because I thought that they shouldn't have done Diaz-McGregor like part 2 right away. But they pushed that fight up early.
Well, that's why I think this would be the best because it's already been 3 years.
I think this is the best. Like, and then let McGregor fight Diaz, get another fight under his belt in the UFC, train a little more, and then take on the winner of Ferguson-Khabib, or fight Khabib to try to get to Ferguson if Ferguson is able to upset Khabib.
Curveball, put him on the same card. Put him on the same card because Diaz and McGregor is not going to be a title fight.
Yeah. And
so you have Diaz and
the co-main event.
Exactly.
That'd be
be a huge card.
Somebody call Dana White.
They're gonna have Goldberg security outside of their.
But yeah, it was a bad night for the UFC in the regard that there was a high likelihood of once Khabib jumped over the octagon that riots and brawls with fans were going to occur, and like
that was gonna happen regardless.
And like the governor of Nevada was there, and like Dana White was like, it's not a good look when the governor is sprinting out of the arena because he's fearing like what might happen to him.
People were saying it was safer in the arena than it was in the concessions in the hallways.
Yeah.
Like, nah, I'm gonna sit here and wait it out.
Right.
And sure enough, you hear about all the fights going on in the hallways. Just Russian Americans fighting Irish Americans. And
yeah.
It's just like,
so that's the only way that the UFC lost is because like non-UFC fans perception of the UFC is like this isn't good. Like that's not a good look. It's not going to bring in
drunk meatheads looking to fight.
It's not going to bring in the like casual to not even a viewer but like wants to see what's going on. Like it's not going to help bring those people in for the UFC big fights, the UFC main events that aren't the Khabib McGregor's or like.
But I think the fact that all the build-up, even though there was minimal press going on for this fight, there was so much built up that if you're going to the fight, you know what's going to happen.
All the press was from the last Khabib fight. Like, that was all the press they needed. They were like, here's what happened when they weren't fighting. What do you think will happen?
Yeah.
So I mean, for them on the money, like, on their money, like, it was a winning situation because now your next 5 main events for UFC are going to get publicized. They're going to be looked at to see what's going to happen at the next UFC fight.
Oh. And I think it was Joe Rogan had Connor's coach on the show.
His jiu-jitsu coach?
No, his coach.
Oh, his actual coach.
Yeah, his coach. He had him in there and he was talking about it. So best bet for Connor would be a fight St. Patty's Day.
Hell yeah.
The day before St. Patty's Day and have it in Boston. Yeah. It's like New York's already booked for the UFC right before it, the card before it. So the next fight, why not do a TD? The TD Garden.
Yeah, that'd be incredibly smart. If not, just get it into Ireland. But
have the Diaz McGregor trilogy TD Garden.
That'd be dope.
Yeah, I mean,
you can't have Khabib on that fight because Boston will burn that fucking arena down.
Yeah, definitely. And
get Dana White on the phone. We need to discuss this now.
Follow the UFC up with who's in Dyer for you, Andrew.
My Dyer is at Sunday Night Snooze Fest. Cowboys in Houston. It's just an ugly game, just boring. It put me to sleep.
And then to end the way it ended.
Yes, that punt on 4th and 1.
Nah,
Gumbo wasn't feeling it either.
No,
she agrees.
She got some more.
She knows we're talking about Jason Garrett some more. She's like, get him off. Get him away. That was not. It was a competitive football game, which is what we look for, but it was not a good football game.
As bad as it was, it still wasn't the worst game.
Right,
it was
exactly.
It was bad for being the only game on.
Well, yeah, it was bad for being your Sunday night, like, premiere game.
Yeah.
So, Alvin, on to you and Dyer.
Just piggybacking off of what Drew was saying, it's the NFC East in a whole, like, no winning records on that division. You got the 1-4 Giants.
Whoop, whoop.
All the rest are 2-3. It's just not looking good. I mean, for a Cowboys fan, we still have a chance to get the division, which is good. But, I mean, that's looking like the worst division in the league right now.
I mean, the AFC South is right there, too. But at least they have Jacksonville, who's is going to be at least a good team because of the defense. But the AFC South is pretty ugly, and the same thing goes with the AFC East, where, like, I mean, the Dolphins are decent, but I would take the Cowboys over the Dolphins tomorrow if they played. And this is with Jason Garrett still being the coach. But yeah, the NFC least had a bad weekend. my Endire follows my fire in the college football thing. Stanford, after that big comeback win against Oregon, got blown out last week against Notre Dame, and then they followed that up with a loss. I believe they were at home against Utah, so they've lost 2 straight weeks. I mean, this loss didn't have Bryce Love, who's their best player, but for a team that should be this good to lose 2 weeks in a row and really not even be in the game, it was 40-27. It was a fall from grace from a team that had made such a great comeback against Oregon. That now they're going to probably be outside of the top 25. I think they dropped to 17 after being like 6 2 weeks ago. So they're my dire. So now let's prophesize. Alvin, you can lead off the prophecies.
Well, my week prophecy was Boston winning tonight, and they're winning right now. I think it's 4-0.
4-1.
4-1. I still think they end it tonight and move on to play the Astros, which we're all waiting for.
Andrew?
My prophecy, I say we'll see our first NFL head coach firing of the year.
Whoop, whoop, clapper.
Hey.
Get out of here.
Fingers crossed.
It's not happening. Because if it was going to happen, it would happen today. So if they lose Sunday, then he's fired.
Monday. He'll be done.
Yeah, so you're hoping the Cowboys lose then if you want Jason Garrett fired.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and it with what Alvin said, with that division everybody having a losing record, like, so what if you end up going if you drop to 2-4? I think going into their bye week, we have a dog in our midst because she was not being happy out there. So Gumbo will be around for the next few minutes while we finish up. But yeah, so it wouldn't surprise me that if they, like, it wouldn't hurt them to lose, fire their coach, and use it as a rallying cry. It might be, beneficial for the team going forward. My prophecy is next week we'll be in round 2 of the MLB Playoffs, and we will be recording during Game 4 of the NLCS, where the Dodgers will hold a 3-0 lead in the series over the Brewers, looking to sweep them out of the playoffs. And I mean, this is mostly just wishful thinking because of me disliking the Brewers at the moment, and and me wanting to see Clayton Kershaw have that postseason success so that people can stop ragging on the greatest pitcher of our generation because of his postseason deficiencies. So that's my prophecy, and with that, we'll sign off for our weekly edition of the Benchwarmers podcast. I am Casey Coggins with Alvin Hebert,
Special guest Gumbo,
and Andrew Lara.